Amen. I hope that was a blessing. All right. I appreciate the opportunity. I was very blessed by some of the interesting insights in Matthew 1 and in John 3 and some of the other places that I hadn't really seen that way necessarily. And even here in John 10, when it talks about the shepherd and the doorkeeper as being two different ones. There's an interesting little insight there. Little discipleship language being instituted in there, you know. Anyway, this is the Afterburn. I praise Yah that my voice is still holding out for at least another few minutes. This was good. I think it's because Sherry's lozenges froze my throat. I kept expecting like cold mist to come out of my mouth from those. Only take one, not two at a time. Not the way to do it. Okay. Anyway, so this is the Afterburn. So if you have a comment or question, you can raise your hand. We will bring around the mic. If you're on live stream, Rob will write it down and then read it over the mic. If you have a question about anything that was peripheral to the teaching, we're going to ask you to either wait till another time, call us directly, or we may refer you to a teaching that covers it more specifically. All right, for the interest of time. Okay, so please don't be offended if we do that. But if you have a question about this part 6 or any of the other previous parts, we'll see what we can do to address them as best we can. Who wants to go first?
Which you just touched upon, the shepherd and the door. It was a really cool metaphor, and then I got to where Yeshua says he's the shepherd. How do those two, he's the one letting in the ones he's trained, but then he's the shepherd.
Okay, hold on. So that's a great question. Okay, so he is the shepherd. Okay, let's say you've got a flock that's huge and is scattered and has lots of other little smaller shepherds handling different parts. And so they all work for the shepherd, who's also the doorkeeper. And he's not going to let somebody come to take the flock. Okay, let's say I've got a huge flock and I'm Jacob and I got a lot of sons. And my sons come to take that, you two, or maybe two of the sons, take this one, go over that way. You take this part of the flock, go this way. However, I don't know you. You're not one of my sons. Go away. So the gatekeeper is only allowing for that. Of course, there are those who are trying to come up a different way. They're thinking, I'm going to figure out, oh, you know what? I didn't hit that during the teaching. Good, this will go through the Afterburn. That was another piece that I wanted to hit a little stronger. Thank you, Sarah Beth, for bringing it up. The ones that are going and trying to find another way around this. There's no other way around this. There's only one way. And you go in through the door. But there are those who are going to try to climb up through a window or to climb onto the roof or try to find some other way in. And that's why you have all the different flavors of different religions out there and different versions of Christianity and Messianic and everything else. They're all trying to find their own way in. No, there's only one way in. And so we have to make sure we understand that. So thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, so the doorkeeper you can look like as either the father, and then all shepherds kind of flow through the son being the one good shepherd, or the one good shepherd being the chief shepherd, having minor shepherds below that he would recognize and allow the sheep to go out with. Okay, so good question.
Second question. I don't know if this is the right way to look at it, but when he says he will save his people from their sins, I know that we've standardly look at that as saving from the penalty. What about saving us from breaking the Torah, saving us from sinning?
Well, the process of going through this will help deliver you from the fleshly habits, the fleshly addictions, some of which he may choose to do, and some of you have experienced miraculously, where he's just taken those desires away from you. That doesn't happen always, or even often. But some of them, he's going to inspire you and strengthen you to be delivered out of those things. Again, the word delivered works so much better in that case, okay, than saved. Because saved, again, is linked too much to that. That's why I call it Christianese, a term that no longer means what it should mean, so it can't be used anymore the way we used to, because that word is still linked to that whole once saved, always saved, ultimate fulfillment thing. Sin, well, let's see. There's lots of different flavors of sin. There's so many things that I could be doing or not doing. There's things he does that I don't do and things I do that he doesn't do. So every one of us has our own thing, right? And so yes, through this process of coming through Yeshua, through the Torah, through the understanding, through the opening of your heart, mind, ears, etc., yes, you'll be delivered out of all that foolishness. Good question.
I wanted to thank you very much for this teaching in general, because I've always kind of sort of understood this, but I've never actually implemented it completely in my life. I've had too much of the filters from Christianity still messing with me even after going through Orthodox Judaism. And because of that, I am very grateful for this teaching, because it's helping to wash out all that other stuff.
Awesome.
Just one little point to add to what you were saying about Yeshua's death having somehow, quote unquote, according to the Christians, tossed out the Torah. If that was the case, it would have been from the beginning of creation.
That's true, because after all, he was slaughtered from the beginning, before the creation even, right? Before the foundations of the world. So then why did we need Torah anyway? This is why we know it's delusion. Like he says, I gave them strong delusion. You couldn't believe what Christianity believes and teaches if it wasn't for that. There's no way, because all of you look back now and go, how in the world did I think that? Because he gave you over to strong delusion. That's the only answer. That's why you get frustrated showing your, what you believe to be somewhat intelligent family members and coworkers and stuff, and they can't see it. Which, by the way, helps prove my Bible to be true when it says that they can't see it unless he shows it to them. So it doesn't take a certain level of, literacy or intelligence to see it. It takes eyes to see that he gives you to see it. And so this is why we know, again, that this book is telling the truth. Because there's no other explanation that I can come up with as to why an intelligent person shown these things can't see it. And all of you, I believe, are fairly intelligent, and you couldn't see it. The book's true. He tells the truth. That's part of what we stand on firmly. We see these things play out. And by the way, that's a New Testament idea, so it helps back up your New Testament. The Old Testament doesn't say that. New Testament does. So that helps endorse my New Testament is true. When I start seeing things that only it says and it's true, that gives it a lot of strength.
I went back to the teaching last night, and we listened to the reason we were created, to make decisions. So we bear so much responsibility, and yet there's so much that we don't think about when we make decisions. Every little small decision just inevitably defines us and creates who we are. And that's how we'll be judged in the end, according to the decisions we made. So if we back off from the situation and look at this thing as a gigantic puzzle, there's so many pieces to this puzzle. It's so intricately designed. You can't come into this truth and get 2 or 3 little small parts of it and say, oh yeah, this is okay. You got to back away from it and look at so many of the intricate parts and how they fit together to know how we will be judged. Inevitably, every decision we make, and that's such a good teaching. I encourage those new listening and in the congregation to go back and listen to that. That's an excellent teaching.
Thank you. That's making decisions, the reason we exist. 2 points real quickly about that. One is there's no requirement that you make right decisions. The requirement is that you make every effort and desire to make right decisions. That's Deuteronomy 8:2. Second point, huge point, okay, and what he's talking about here as we're going through all of this and putting the puzzle together and trying to understand it. Is there any chance that a person will have enough of those pieces after doing this for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years maybe, right? So in other words, why are we listening to teachers who've only been doing this 3, 4, 5 years when they don't have enough pieces of the puzzle to even know what pieces they're trying to make? They don't know what pieces are missing. They don't know if they misunderstood a piece to be something that it really wasn't. Oh, I thought that was part of a teacup. No, it's actually part of a plate, or it's part of whatever you're making the picture is, right? Because you're only seeing a little piece of it. Well, the color kind of matched this, so I thought it was that. Well, no, with the shape. I mean, let's be honest, okay? If you go to the Jewish culture is going to expect you to do just the Tanakh, especially the Chumash, the Parshas, for a number of years, and then they're going to start teaching you Talmud, not saying you need to learn that, but they won't even really teach you that till you understand the foundation of that first, inside out. Okay, there's a expectation. It's like, I'm not going to teach you calculus if you can't do plus, minus, division, and subtraction, and multiplication, whatever. If you can't do the basic arithmetic, I'm not teaching you calculus. I mean, I'm not going to try to help you understand like roots of things and derivatives and all that other stuff if you can't just do basic multiplication, division, and adding and subtracting. I mean, they don't usually start teaching you algebra till like, what, 7th grade or something? Okay, so think about it. Algebra is 7th grade. That means until 7th grade, you're simply learning to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And you start in learning all this stuff as early as 1st, 2nd grade. You learn your numbers. That's 7 years before you even learn how to do something with the basic simplicity of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And that's just dealing with math. We're not talking about something as complex as this book. So just think about it, all right? Look at the metaphors. Ask yourselves, who am I learning from? Are they qualified? How long have they been doing this? And not that they're a bunch of, incompetent idiots either. They're just doing the best they can, happen to have enough charisma to make videos and teachings and stuff, and they're out there excited, sharing what they understand. Problem is they're not thinking through the responsibility. What if I'm incomplete in my understanding? And so they just throw it out there. I mean, I know teachers out there that have been doing this only a few years who are already pulling teachings they did a few years ago because they now completely disagree with what they did a few years ago. They got to pull those teachings. That's a problem. We're supposed to be growing in knowledge. It says grace and knowledge, right? We're supposed to be growing in understanding. So we got to be very careful.
I just wanted to add a thank you for the whole, you're not qualified to understand the book. Christianity seemed, or the message I got was, if you're really good at this and you're actually walking the walk, then you'll come up with these great ideas yourself.
Oh, they're coming up with great ideas themselves.
And it was so frustrating because I wasn't.
That's where do you think all this craziness comes from? People coming up with these ideas themselves. They're not the Ruach, but they're coming up with them themselves.
So it's very actually relieving and brings a lot of peace.
Good. And again, I'm glad nobody got upset about it, I don't think, on Tuesday. At least nobody typed in that they got upset about it, and I get upset about it now. Look, that's not an insult, okay? It's just the way he wrote the book. Even his disciples didn't just take everything he said and go, I don't know what he's talking about. They had to ask him, what did you mean by that? And even then, what happened after he was resurrected? He still had to come back after the 3 years of private training and open their minds to understand the scripture. Could you imagine? You would think after 3 years of personal one-on-one training, pretty much a 1-on-12 training, it's a pretty small classroom, that they wouldn't, and he had to still teach them so much more. Even after that, private tutoring, basically. Every day. I mean, we're talking about 7 days a week, every day. And still he had to open their minds to understand. We're supposed to have teachers. Why? Because it strengthens the system he has in place. It gets rid of the chaos that would then ensue without it. It's the teacherless, structureless system that has all the chaos going on out there. That's the problem.
All right. Yanni has a comment. I always thought, let the dead bury the dead, was said because it maybe because it was Shabbat. Thank you for clearing this verse up for me. Go forward now and keep walking.
Thank you, Yanni. Yanni's in Denmark. How cool is that she makes sure to be at all of our services and stuff?
Yes. And Cheryl Tabor asks if you could explain Luke 9:60 as how we proclaim his kingdom.
Luke 9:60, let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and announce the reign of Elohim. Okay, so let's be careful, and this is even coming up on our Marco Polo groups with the guys. Let's be careful we don't fall into, again, Christian mindset. It's not everybody's job to evangelize the world. Whatever you think evangelize means, sharing the good news and shouting out there and whatever. Yeshua is talking to who here in Luke chapter 9? The guys who are following him. Not just talking to everybody out there in the big crowds. These are people who said, I'll follow you. He said, okay, if you want to follow me as a disciple, I'm going to have my guys do these things. They're not going to have a place to lay their head. They're going to have to run around. They're going to get persecuted. They're going to have all these things happening. Do you want to do that? Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that level of commitment and responsibility? He says, but you go and do this because that's what I'm training you to do. Same thing at the end of Matthew, chapter 28 there. He sends out the ones who are trained to go out. Okay, so let's be careful that Luke 9 and Matthew 28 and these other places are not turned into the Christianity's version of what's called the Great Commission. There is a Great Commission for those that are workers of the harvest. Okay, those who actually are trained. Let me ask you something. If you have a farm, a lot of people here have probably never been farmers, but imagine, I'm sure you could picture this. You have a farm. And you're going to go and hire a bunch of people to go out there and farm because there's a lot of harvest going on, but the laborers are few. How many of you want to hire a big bunch of people that have never farmed before? Nobody? Why? Are they going to do it right? Are they going to cut up things wrong and harvest things wrong and plow things wrong? Whatever. They're not going to know what they're doing. They need to have a supervisor. And there needs to be a certain percentage of people that know what they're doing. Your preference is, anybody ever fill out a resume for a job? Right? Everybody, right? Why does a job want you to have a resume? They want to know if you have any experience doing what they want you to do so they don't have to train you from scratch. So when we're talking about the laborers are few, the harvest is great, we're talking about trained, anointed, and appointed. We're not talking about just bodies. Okay? Anybody ever do something and a whole lot of people volunteered, and the more people volunteered, the worse it got, not better, because they didn't know what they were doing? And worse, they thought they did and wanted to do it their way. We used to, when we ran the feast, used to try to feed about 200 plus people in a kitchen, and we cooked all the food ourselves. And guess one of the first things we had to make sure to do is tell the people who were volunteering in the kitchen, you are only helping hands. We don't want any help with the ingredients or the measurements or the recipes. We've already got that. Because we had people making potato salad, putting something in it that they always put in theirs, not knowing we had a reason not to put it in ours. Because we knew about people maybe with allergies or some other thing. So you can't just do what you want, when you want, how you want. There needs to be authority and guidance. And there may be reasons that you're not aware of why to do or not to do. You go to throw pepper in something not realizing that it'd kill Nayla. But you go dumping pepper in it, and if she's assuming that it doesn't because we normally don't put it, well, but you always put pepper in whatever it is we're cooking. So you went and put the pepper in because you just thought maybe we forgot. You can't do that. Okay, so let's be careful. Luke 9, Matthew 28, all these other places, when it talks about going out, it talks about being trained to go out.
All right, from Diane Bloom. Is there a connection of thief and robber in John 10:1? False teachers, in John 10:1, false teachers in 1 Thessalonians 5:2, alluding unexpected coming. Could this mean trickery of non-Torah obedience?
Look, the thieves, the robbers, etc., are those who are trying to get people to follow them that are not the shepherd. I'm not going to turn to Thessalonians and figure that out right this second, but just to understand, the metaphor here is those that are trying to lead you in a way that they say is right, but it's wrong. And it's going to lead to destruction. It's going to lead to problems. So you don't just follow anybody, including me. I mean, don't follow anybody. Vet them out. Go through the process of trying to figure out, match up what they're saying. Ask him, the Father, if it's the Son you're hearing in the words. I mean, you're listening to somebody in front of a microphone, me, whoever it is, but are you hearing them or are you hearing him? And ask the Ruach to help you with that. That's the true teacher. And ask the true teacher, hey, is this the one? And don't listen to just whatever voice is in your head. Go, oh yeah, that's great, because it's your voice because you like what you heard. Be careful with that. Not every voice in your head is the Ruach. If you don't learn anything, you got to learn that. Oh, the people tell me how, the Ruach told me this and the Ruach told me that. Well, you heard a voice, or you felt led. It could be lead poisoning, though. Well, I felt led. Man, remember it says, in the way that seems right to a man leads to what? Death. So be careful what you think seems right. Matter of fact, it might be good if that person teaching is annoying you and hurting your toes, smacking them away, hammering them. Don't run from that. Because look, how many times you read, and we read it today, there was a division, there was a problem, and others probably stopped walking with him. They didn't like what he said. It's Yeshua talking, they didn't like what he said. It's problematic. Robert, go ahead.
From Adrian and Patricia Bogle. Please clarify that perish means ceasing to exist.
Just the definition of the word. Okay? All right? Perish doesn't mean tortured. Perish means it's gone. All right? End, over, done. That's it. Okay? The Greek word means perish. Doesn't mean tortured. Doesn't mean living forever in some other condition. That's why I like the translation. It has it as perish. I came so that you shall not perish, but have everlasting life. So now we know the two choices, perishing or living forever. The Messiah, you're going to believe him or not? He's saying there's two conditions you can end up in at the end, perish or live forever. He didn't say tortured or live forever. Or I shouldn't say, he didn't say live forever tortured or live forever happy. Everlasting life is only part of one part of this. You get everlasting life, it comes with everything good. You get perish, you get nothing else. That's it. You're done. It's only two choices. What did Moses say? I lay before you life and death. Two choices. Robert, go ahead.
Rick Perry would like some clarification on who is the doorkeeper. How is he identified?
Oh, I think I explained that already. I know that was put already, but I'm going to go with either the doorkeeper being the father or the son as the head shepherd and having other shepherds under him. Okay? It's a discipleship sort of thing. Okay? So think of the other shepherds as foremen. All right, I'm the head shepherd or the senior foreman, and all the other guys come and report to me, and they come and I give them the parts of the flock. Okay, you take them out to, the north 40, you take them out to the east 40, you take them out to whatever the property is, right? Okay. So I would say doorkeeper in this case is either the father, if the son is being referred to as the shepherd, as it is in some of the verses, or it's the son if he's referring to under shepherds or overseers, being an under shepherd.
All right. Kirsten Van Meter. What came to mind for her on possession was Jacob and Esau. Esau possessed his birthright, but then lost it by selling it to Jacob. Absolutely.
But that's why I like using that verse in Luke that shows whatever you possess, if you possess it and do something with it, you get more. If you possess it and don't, even what you possess could be taken away from you. That's not even just you neglecting it and losing it, etc. If you neglect it and don't use it right, he'll take it from you. So that's so much for once saved, always saved there. Because you think you possess everlasting life. Be careful. Anybody else?
All right. Yeah, I've got two more, and then I'm going to have to go through what else has been getting typed. Cheryl W. says, because the Father uses tribulation to teach us and strengthen us, is it wrong to remove ourselves from a person who persecutes our walk in Torah?
No, it's right to remove yourself from people that are persecuting you. Look, just because it says you will be persecuted doesn't make you a doormat and you just got to stand there and get stepped on and persecuted. If you have the ability to extricate yourself out, do so. But don't yield to them. Don't allow them to cause you to compromise your walk. If you can walk away and still maintain your walk away. All right? If you have family members that are persecuting you, tell them that's not acceptable and I'm cutting you off unless you change the way you're behaving. If you're going to treat me this way, I don't need to have a relationship with you under those conditions. Okay, you're not cutting them off because you believe different. You're cutting them off because they're beating you up because you believe different. So tell them, stop beating me up and we'll have a relationship. I still have a fairly good friendship with an atheist. We grew up our whole lives together. We're still pretty good friends. Don't talk to him very much. Matter of fact, I haven't talked to him in a couple of years now, but I mean, we're friends. If he called me up right now, we'd be just as happy to talk to each other as anything. He does not persecute me. I don't persecute him. I don't just throw away the relationship with him just because I walk different now. Now, there's things that we used to do when we were together both in the world that I don't do anymore. And if he was still doing them and we were together, I wouldn't do them. Simple as that. But if he wants to call me up, tell me how his wife and kids are doing and how his life's doing and whatever, we're still friends. We need to still show love and compassion in our caring for other people, not in a cultish thing. If you're not part of our cult, we don't talk to you. However, nobody should be just subject to relentless abuse and attacks and being called names and being picked on and the way that we are by family and friends and coworkers. So get yourself out of the situation. Don't hesitate. Oh, but you don't understand. Hey, listen, I know it's your mother. I know it's your father. I know it's your brother. So what? Tell them, hey, if you can't talk to me better and treat me better and let this thing go, and we can't just respect each other's walks, I'm not taking your calls anymore. Or as soon as it goes there, I'm hanging up. I have no problem with you saying that. Hey, you want to keep talking, we're great. But as soon as it goes here, I'll give you one warning. If you don't stop, I'm just hanging up the phone. Then you can call another time and we'll try again. But as soon as it starts going here, I'll let you know. If you go down this path, I'm going to hang up. If they keep going, hang up. Okay, Robert? Oh, I'm sorry, Dweed?
Yeah, I just made a connection to the people that were climbing up another way. They're basically being false teachers, false shepherds. That seems to tie in with Ezekiel 34 when he's saying, Son of man, verse 2, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel, prophesy and say unto them, thus says Adonai unto the shepherds, woe be to the shepherds of Israel that do feed themselves, should not the shepherds feed the flocks? And it continues on from there. It's just one thing after another that these supposed shepherds have been doing that is way off and seems to be basically thieves.
Right. Okay, and by the way, look what it says in verse 5 there. In Ezekiel 34:5 it says, and they were scattered because there was no shepherd. So the sheep can't just figure things out by themselves. The one thing you need to figure out is, where's my shepherd? Oh, well, Yeshua is my shepherd. Yes, he is. But just like here, they still work through human beings. Okay? And so that's important. All right? Robert?
Yeah, from Michael Lassell. Could you please clarify what you said about those not in covenant are not sinning when they do wrong?
Okay. It has to simply do with the definition of sin. See, we are all screwed up in our heads because of Christianity thought. That's why you don't understand simplicity like this. And I'm not picking on Mike. Wrong is wrong. We might even agree something is evil or heinous or horrific. But sin is very specific. What is the definition of sin? Transgression of the law by someone who knows they're supposed to be under it. It's not sin otherwise. If you're not covenanted, it's not sin. Because sin is trespassing the covenant. So it doesn't mean that murder is not, is no longer bad to do. It's still evil, horrible, etc., wrong, illegal in most countries and whatever, right? But as sin, it's a covenantal thing. When you were not covenanted and you ate shrimp, you ate shrimp. When you covenanted, you come to realize eating shrimp is sin. But it wasn't sin before. It just was unhealthy before. And it was against the way Yahweh intended it not to be food, so you were eating something he never intended to be food. But sin is a relational thing. It's a disobedience. It's a trespass on what he says do or don't do. So don't think it diminishes the rightness or the wrongness as culture and society would picture something. It's still wrong to commit adultery. It's still wrong to steal. It's still, whether you're covenanted or not. That's why almost every government has that in their laws. We universally agree on those things. But it's sin only under covenant. Does that make sense? Not everyone. It's sin as a label for it. It doesn't make it more wrong, by the way, now that we know it's sin. It was just as wrong as it was before. But now we know it's called sin. All right? So hopefully that helps, Mike. Look, we have, and this is why we need teachers, and this is why we need to hear things over and over and over again, because we're swimming upstream against 2,000 years plus of man teaching things with their own agendas incorrectly. I mean, that's just the reality that we're in. Especially through the Christianity system, it was taught very much universally. I had a conversation with someone the other day. They were not understanding that, Protestant churches are just as Catholic as the Catholic churches on most things, except basically the Pope, pretty much. I mean, it was the Catholics that gave you Sunday, Christmas, Easter, and all that stuff. So if you're a Protestant church, quote unquote, keeping all of that stuff, then really how much have you left the breast of your mother, Okay, you're protesting certain structural things that you didn't like authoritatively coming out of the Catholic Church maybe or something. But most of the mindsets, the burning in hell, the going to heaven when you die, all that stuff is Catholic. Okay, it all came from one place, Mother Church. So every one of the daughters is believing the same stuff. And you get to hear it pounded into you every Sunday. And then you wonder, coming out of that generationally, why you struggle. Because you're still looking back. You can't let go of that stuff from back there. You're trying to plow, but it's hard to plow when you're so distracted by everything you always heard, learned, and knew generationally for a long time. All right? For a long time. All right. I think we got everybody now. If you'll all rise. All right. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Shabbat Shalom. Have a good week. Have a good day. Until we see you again. Day 35.